Hamden, Connecticut, was a town that held time captive. It was as though the hands of the clock slowed in their tireless dance when they reached this pocket of the world. Maple and oak trees lined the cobblestone streets, their leaves rustling in whispered secrets as John Sullivan tread upon their fallen brethren. John was a stolid figure, aged but not defeated, wrinkles etching stories into his face. He carried the specter of his past illness with quiet dignity. Each labored breath he drew a testament to his enduring will. His motivation was one of revenge, a slow-burning fire kindled in the face of personal violation. In this anachronistic haven, he was a seeker of truth amidst the enigma of mundane thefts plaguing Hamden's antique shops. A puzzle that invited him, taunted him, whispered cryptic riddles into the depths of his quietude. "Sullivan," nodded Sheriff Davies, a robust man in his 50s, who carried the scent of tobacco and old paper. "Davies," John greeted, his voice soft, almost drowned by the rustle of the ancient trees. They stood in front of the occult obscura, a curious antique shop holding mysteries that seemed to tremble on the precipice of the unknown. Inside, a labyrinth of relics and artworks from eras bygone sprawled, their value seemingly lost on local thieves. Amongst the quaint disorder, Richard Montague, the owner, shuffled. His wiry frame echoed in almost unsettling enthusiasm, a paradox within the confines of dust and shadowy nostalgia. "Ah, Mr. Sullivan," he exclaimed, with a voice that crackled like dry leaves underfoot. Come, see what they've taken this time." John examined the empty display case, studying the vacant velvet pillow and a postcard-sized painting beside it depicting cryptic symbols. There was a strange sense of familiarity about it, a resonance that prickled the remnants of his trauma. He picked up the painting, his gloved fingers tracing the ancient pigments. "And what does this signify?" he asked, his gaze still locked on the eerie symbols. Richard shrugged. "Couldn't say, but it's the same symbol found on all the stolen artifacts." A frisson of realization traveled through John. The case was no longer a mundane investigation, but an unsettling knot waiting to be unfurled. Hamden's quaint charm began to shroud a sinister intrigue. He found himself peering not merely into the abyss of petty thefts, but into the Stygian depths of a puzzle connected to the shadows of his past. As night unfurled its ebony wings over Hamden, it brought a languid serenity that played a deceitful lullaby, hiding the disquiet that brewed beneath. John Sullivan, in the confines of his rented room, found himself engrossed in the symbolism that had stirred the echoes of his past. In this dance of darkness and light, he pursued an unwelcome wraith of memories, feeling the lacerations of his past beginning to bleed into his investigation. He found himself returning to the occult obscura next morning, a moth drawn to the flickering flame of its mysteries. Richard greeted him with an enthusiasm unscathed by the threat of thefts, an unsettling contrast in the growing tension. "Morning, Mr. Sullivan. Seeking more mysteries?" His eyes crinkled with amusement as he leaned across the counter. John nodded, placing the tiny painting with the symbols on the counter. "Could use your help." Richard studied the symbols, his gaze turning distant. He led John towards a hidden back room, a sanctuary filled with even more peculiar artifacts. Cobweb-veiled tomes, decaying tapestries embroidered with cryptic patterns, and moth-eaten maps with labyrinthine layouts adorned the room. "You see, Mr. Sullivan, most artifacts here were donated by the Ordinis Noctis," Richard divulged, his tone almost reverent. John raised an eyebrow. "The Night Order?" Richard nodded, opening a ledger with yellowing pages that recorded transactions of strange curios. "A secretive cult, they say, but generous patrons to my shop." A wave of disquiet washed over John as he made the connections. His investigation into the mundane had ushered him into the realm of the surreal. The Night Order might have been an odd key to the lock of cryptic symbols. In the quiet hours of the afternoon, Hamden started revealing its secrets, every revelation an invitation to a deeper layer of the enigma. He found himself caught in the gravitational pull of the mystery, as if some cosmic force were guiding him towards a truth he was destined to discover. By the time night once again claimed dominion, he found himself on the precipice of an abyss. The further he delved into the mystery, the darker the shadows became. Unbeknownst to him, he was no longer merely dealing with art dealers and petty thieves, but becoming entangled in a complex web of cosmic proportions that reached far beyond the confines of Hamden. Through the veiled curtains of morning fog, John strode towards a clandestine location Richard had disclosed, a dilapidated church on the outskirts of Hamden, a forgotten monument rumored to house the meetings of the Night Order. As he ambled, the shadows of the previous day seeped into his consciousness, intertwining with the spectral tendrils of his own haunting past. Yet his flame of resolve remained undimmed. The church was a grotesque silhouette against the morning sky, its decay a testament to time's remorseless erosion. An uncanny aura pulsated around it, as if reality thinned within its confines. Guided by a foreboding, he slipped inside its forsaken nave, the scent of damp earth and forgotten prayers permeating the air. In the heart of the church, where the pulpit once held court, he found an altar of stone engraved with the same cryptic symbols that had started his descent into this abyss. The eerie stillness was broken by the subtle vibration of the stone, a resonation that seeped into his bones and stirred the familiar dread within him. Clandestinely observing a ceremony later that night, the veil of normalcy was finally lifted, revealing the terrifying reality of the travelers. He saw the stolen artifacts arranged meticulously around the altar. The gathered members of the Ordinis Noctis chanted an ancient mantra, their voices reverberating off the cold stone walls, creating a haunting symphony of invocation. From the center of this arcane configuration, a distortion formed. The air rippled, and the fabric of reality seemed to stretch, to welcome the beings from the other side. They emerged, figures that defied comprehension, their forms oscillating between dimensions, their presence causing a cacophony of senses. Witnessing the manifestation, the abstract concept of cosmic horror was no longer as abstract. It was a tangible entity that stole his breath, turned his blood to ice, and threatened to fracture his sanity. As he retreated from the accursed church, he carried with him not just the weight of this revelation, but also the burdens of his past. He realized his past trauma, his battle with his illness, had inadvertently made him a conduit for this dark saga. But this revelation was not a conclusion. Instead, it opened a portal to a realm of further trials and tribulations. The frail reality of Hamden had been usurped by an overwhelming cosmic horror, and John Sullivan found himself at the helm of this terrifying voyage. The veil of reality, once assumed to be steadfast and immutable, had slipped from his grasp, leaving him standing on the precipice of an abyss so deep, so vast, that it threatened to consume him. Hamden, once a picturesque town of antiquity, had morphed into a nightmarish landscape. Every antique shop held sinister implications, every artifact a potential vessel for these ethereal horrors. However, the growing dread didn't deter him. Instead, it kindled his burning spirit of defiance. Plagued by his turbulent past and the terrifying present, he found himself returning to the forsaken church, armed with a desperate plan to thwart the Ordinis Noctis. His every step echoed in the stone-cold silence of the looming edifice, a chilling symphony of defiance and despair. He arrived in the midst of their ceremony, his entrance drawing gasps of surprise from the cult members. A confrontation ensued, each word echoing the horrors of the travelers, revealing their sinister intentions of using humanity as mere vessels for their cosmic, insatiable desires. As the confrontation drew to its end, the members initiated a forced ritual, aiming to summon another of their kind. The unholy symphony of their chant filled the air as the altar began to resonate. John, in a desperate act, disrupted the ritualistic pattern of the artifacts. Reality convulsed. An eldritch traveler, only partially manifested, writhed in the chaos. Its form, an amorphous paradox, wavered in the rippling air, its very existence a discordant melody in the symphony of reality. The sight was a revelation to John, exposing the true nature of the travelers, entities thriving on the sanity of mortals, leaving behind hollow husks devoid of life. The shock of the spectacle brought the ceremony to a halt. Seizing the moment, John made his escape, carrying with him the stark understanding of the travelers and their cosmic atrocities. He had stared into the void and emerged forever scarred, but he also bore an even stronger resolve. He ventured once more into the decrepit church, the eerie silence of the ancient structure punctuated by the echoes of the cult's macabre practices. He began to rearrange the artifacts, disrupting the symbols, inverting the ritual to close the dimensional rift. As he manipulated the ritual's focal point, reality warped, twisted, pulsed around him. The spectral tendrils of the otherworldly dimension clawed at the edges of the church, seeking to maintain their grip. However, his grim determination served as an anchor, steadying him against the cosmic turbulence. With the final adjustments made, he initiated the reversal. The symphony of unreality erupted. The veil between the dimensions quivered and then began to mend. The rift, once a gaping wound in the fabric of reality, shrank, tearing the partially manifested traveler away and back into its realm of chaos. In the aftermath, the church stood silent once more, an ordinary relic of the past, the echoes of its otherworldly visitors forever silenced. John emerged, a silhouette etched against the frail morning light, a man changed by his transcendental journey. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like it and subscribe to our channel, where you can find more similar stories, and click on the bell icon to never miss one. There is plenty more cosmic horror to come from the Eldritch Tales Factory. Stay tuned, and until next time.